Welcome to another marketing strategy session. Before we get started, I see I need to make some adjustments, so I will do this now. Asana, Office, Smart Plug, Asana, wrong thing. That'll be for the blooper reel. Alexa, Office, Smart Plug on.
Okay.
There we go. A lot better, a lot better, a lot better. Thinking about Asana, we're talking about Asana. So today I have Sebastian on. Not Sebastian. I'm messing up everything. Bastien on.
It's fine. It's fine. A lot of people confuse the name. I think it's American people, especially, are not used to the name Bastien, so it's fine.
That's true, because we are used to Sebastian, and we would have that as a short nickname for it. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for understanding. It's been really hectic today, so I've all messed up. Got a whole lot of blooper reels to put into this.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So we're going to talk about Asana and not Alexa. We're going to talk about Asana and talk about actually putting together a good plan for your marketing. We're also going to talk a little bit about automation. You know, how to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to it so you don't have to deal with the day-to-day. And then we're going to also dive a little bit into having an assistant help you with this. So, virtual assistants to get on your team. So I know this is going to be very exciting. It's also going to be something that a lot of businesses haven't considered. I don't try to be the expert in everything. That's why I get experts to get on with me and to share their insights. So, Bastien, when it comes to organizing and planning out and managing your campaigns, your marketing, your business day to day, what are some of the things that you look at and best practices that you put into place?
Actually, my Asana is my secret tool, so I do everything with Asana. I actually organize my wedding with Asana. I manage everything in my family with Asana, and I also manage my businesses with Asana. I'm a very small company because it's just myself for my side project about Asana. And so I do the marketing of my personal brand using Asana. And for example, I have what I call the content factory inside Asana, which is a big project. I have one task per day, and I'm trying to post every single day on LinkedIn. So either it's a post or quote or video, I try to manage this in Asana. I have one task per day assigned to me, the type of content it is, and then I have all the places it's being shared on. So for example, my newsletter, my website, my LinkedIn account, my Twitter account. For each of them, I have a status. So I know exactly what's being published on which platform at what time. This is an example of the things you can do with Asana.
Wow. So you basically are saying, okay, I've mapped out what content I want to put, where I want to put it, and even to the point of what time it should go up, all through Asana.
Actually, I've decided that on Mondays, I want to put a quote, on Friday as well. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have posts. So I just prepare my weeks, like I have 2 or 3 weeks in advance. Every Monday I have a quote. So I have a backlog of things ready. And then I just cherry pick quotes and posts and everything for each week.
Okay.
And then for the weeks, I prepare the due dates. I assign to me in Asana. And then each day, the task actually comes back to me. So for example, today I knew that I was supposed to share a post that I prepared like weeks ago, but it has been prepared. So I just publish on LinkedIn, for example.
Okay. So how much batching do you do? I mean, so you prepared it weeks ago. Do you batch maybe a month's worth of content, or do you just go week by week?
It depends. I'm trying to capture as often as possible. So for example, if I see something new on the Asana forum, I will just capture it in Asana. I will put it in the backlog section of my content factory. Okay. And then sometimes on a regular basis, I just go there, I dig in, and I look at what could be published for the next weeks. And I work on the content, I choose the hashtags, I choose the image, I prepare everything, and I put it in the ready section of my project.
Okay. So I'm not going to make it easy on you, Bastien. You thought it was going to be easy. So I told you it was going to be easy, but it's not going to be easy. So what do you say to people like myself that are considered harvesters, squirrels? I'll take a task and I'll make one task, a laundry list of tasks, and now I've got Asana loaded up with all these things to do, but I never get around to doing them because I'm making more tasks on top of the tasks I just made. What do you say to people like that?
I think it's a two-step strategy. The first step is to capture. So you capture things and you put that somewhere out of the way. Is the most important part. It's out of the way. Okay. And then you have the place where you organize things, where you have clean things, very organized, very neat. What you capture doesn't go there. It will go there eventually when you decide it's clean enough. Okay. But you capture somewhere and you organize elsewhere. So in my, for example, in my content factory, I have scheduled, which is the section with dates. I have ready, which is written and ready to be scheduled. And I have the entire backlog with a lot of mess and dirty stuff that I put in there. Okay. But I have the clean stuff and then the mess below.
So do you put that in Asana, or you just kind of have that in something else, and then when it's clean and ready to go, then you put it in Asana?
I put everything in Asana. So the dirty stuff and the clean stuff as well. So I also have another project to manage all my projects. So each project is a section. And the last section is called teeny tiny stuff all around. And in there, I just put everything, like dentist appointment or just whatever, everything. And then on a regular basis, maybe once a week, I just go through the list, go through the mess. I see what I can do within just a few seconds. If I can, I just do it right away. Okay. Sometimes the things don't make sense anymore, so I just delete them. Sometimes I can delegate to an assistant, so I do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I just don't want to do it, so I just pass it and go to the next one.
Wow. See, I've used Asana, and I've had projects with tasks, and then I realize when it's in red that task has been missed, and that task has been missed months ago, and I'm like, wow, I didn't take care of it. And now I've got all these little red dates in Asana, and I'm saying, why didn't I take care of that? And now I spent a whole day reorganizing everything and pretty much redating everything, giving new due dates to everything. And, getting out of that process, I guess that's the procrastination. Getting out of that process is very important. So you have yours structured into 3 buckets, and that's how you help get out of that particular process.
Now, the thing is, when you talk about productivity, people think about doing stuff, like doing a lot of stuff. But that's just one part of the picture. The other part is deleting stuff, because if you don't do stuff, if you decide that you will never do them, if you delete them, it's actually as productive as doing them, even more productive, because you actually saving time. And people don't realize that when they have a project with things to do, it's likely that half of them should probably not be done, because it should be for version 3, 4, 5, like in the far future. So they should probably just reduce the amount of tasks to read the minimum, and just do that first.
Okay. So you delete them, or do you move them to maybe back to the not ready list, not ready bucket?
It depends. When I prioritize, I have 3 buckets as well. I have now, I have maybe someday, and I have later, never, delete now. Okay. So the things you want to do now, the things you want maybe to do someday in the next weeks, and the rest should probably be deleted. If it's that important, it's going to come back. It's an important thing. If it's important, you'll think about it again in the shower in 2 weeks, and you just put it back in. Okay. And it's actually I've read an article on a product team that said they do not store the user request. because if it's important, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back again and again and again. So they just don't keep the user requests. It's just wait for things to just come back, and then they just do them.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, when you're talking about you delegate some of it, we'll get into the assistance aspect. And this is what a lot of businesses may struggle with, because when you have a team and you have to keep your team on track, what are some of the best practices you do when delegating the work?
I think when it comes to assistant, we'll talk about assistant afterwards, but it's important to delegate stuff you've done yourself for a while. So you know exactly what it takes to do the things. So you know, so the task will be clear enough because you've done them already. So you know the shortcomings already. When it comes to delegating to your team, what's really important is to be very clear and precise. Mm-hmm. So if you take the example of Asana, you have a name for the task, which is what needs to be done. You have an assignee, which is the person that needs to do that, not the person that needs to review the work, the person that does the work.
Yeah.
You have a due date, because if you don't put a due date, people can decide they will never do it. So you have a due date. And you have a description explaining what you need to do. And you need to be very clear, and you shouldn't leave anything out, because anything that seems obvious right now might be forgotten in 6 weeks when the person starts working on the task. So you need to be very clear. And actually, Asana gives you two things: clarity and accountability. So clarity is what needs to be done, and accountability is the assignee is the one doing the work, and that's very important.
Okay. And it also has to where you can add people in the, chat area or certain area comments. I'm not sure exactly the best what it's called, but an area where others can keep track of what's going on and be notified on when it's
exactly.
So forth.
In Asana, it used to be called followers. Now it's called collaborators. It's actually at the bottom of a task where you can put people collaborating on the task, and anyone who has been involved as an assignee is automatically assigned as a collaborator, and they can follow what's going on with the task. But it's really important to be mindful of your energy, your time, and the time you spend on things and the notifications. So it's really important to leave a task if it doesn't make sense for you anymore to be a follower of that task.
Okay, so you're not being bombarded by a bunch of notifications, which takes you away from whatever you are doing at the time. Yeah,
exactly. And I've worked with clients, because I'm doing Asana consulting, and I've worked with clients that needed to be collaborators on everything because they wanted to watch on everything. Mm-hmm. And it gets very messy very quickly, because Asana is so simple that people tend to create more tasks. Mm-hmm. Then if you follow everything, you have all that noise going on.
That's true. And I've done that myself, to where I'm following everything, I'm getting notified for everything. And then all of a sudden it becomes so much that I basically, I don't want to say disregard, but I don't look at them anymore. When the notification comes in, I'm like, I'll look at it later. I'm assuming I know what it's about to say. So I'm like, I know. So now it's so much information that I don't look at it. So it's not doing what it was served to do. So
one of the best practices I'm teaching my clients is, you are on a task and you comment and you say, okay, guys, I'm leaving the task now because it doesn't make sense for me anymore to be there. Don't hesitate to bring me back in if you have any questions. Bye-bye. And then you leave.
Okay. So that makes sense. That's really it. I mean, structuring it in a way that only the mission essential personnel is on each task, and not just everybody is a part of everybody's task. So,
exactly.
So let's talk about making this streamlined. We're talking about automation now. That's one of my favorite subjects. I love talking automation. So, let's talk about how you can automate some of this management.
So actually, there's two subjects here. You have the Zapier subject we talk about, I think, and you have the Asana subject by itself. Mm-hmm. To start with Asana, they actually introduced automation a couple of months ago.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, it's called rules inside Asana. Depending on the plan you own, you have access to more or less triggers and actions. So premium and business. On business, you have everything, and on premium, you have a couple of those. So it's fairly simple. For each project, you can define triggers and actions. So for example, the trigger could be the task was added to a project. Then the actions could be to assign to someone, define the due date, comment, move to another project, etc., etc. You have like a dozen actions and a dozen triggers, and that allows you to do quite a bit of stuff. Because when, for example, if you work on the approval process, if you're a marketing agency and you have some content that needs to be created and approved, so you have some kind of workflow. So you're using custom field to map out the workflow step by step. You could have a rule saying when the step needs review, then assign to Brian, for example, because Brian is the manager. And when Brian says approved, you could have a rule saying assigned back to David, who was the designer, for example. And you could have the due date automatically set up for 2 days later, for example, to give 2 days for the review. So it's actually quite powerful, and you can do quite a lot with those automation. And the other subject is Zapier, that you probably know. As Asana is inside Zapier, you have a couple of Zaps available, and you can connect that to a bunch of different apps. And for example, in my case, I send my clients a Calendly link so they can schedule a call with me. And whenever they do, that creates a task in my Asana. So I'm able to link the session I have with them to their Asana project. I can follow everything. It's really streamlined.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a real powerful way of doing it and removing the bottleneck, because a lot of times that's the thing when you start passing it from one person to the next and you have a person that has to manually do that, then they become the bottleneck, which adds hours, if not days, on to getting something finished, completed, and ready to go. So, wow. I didn't know that Asana had rules. That's a great thing to know.
Yeah, they do. It's actually quite powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're connecting it, of course, you can connect to many apps with Zapier. They really are a leader in that space. How often do you tend to bring it back into Asana versus, like, let's say if they are connecting with a communication tool like a email client or something of that nature, and it's taken away from Asana? How often do you try to loop it back in to Asana, even if it's just notifications or adding comments and things of that nature, or do you just kind of leave it on whatever platform that has now been connected with?
I guess it really depends on all the examples you have. For example, if you have a pipe drive to manage your CRM, you have pipe drive first, and then when you close a deal, that does some stuff in Asana. So basically that's the end of it. It ends up in Asana. And if you want to send emails with Gmail whenever something happens in Asana, then you could have Asana trigger something in Gmail. And thanks to the rules, you might also be able to automatically add some comment on the task saying a Gmail email was automatically sent. So you could have things inside Asana as well as going outside of Asana. And then depending on the tool you use, it can actually come back in, because Zapier has this ability to watch for things happening in both tools and connect them to each other. So it really depends. There's a lot of different use cases.
Okay. So when you're working with clients, you usually sit down and map everything out first before you start to just dive into creating things, projects and tasks in Asana and connections.
Yeah. It really depends, because clients come to me at different stages. Some of them just decided to go with Asana and we have to do everything. And some of them are quite advanced and use the tool for several years. Just need someone to audit their installation, the setup. So it's quite different. But for a new client, you sit down and you try to map out all the workflows and processes they have. And you also try to have the big picture of the ecosystem they use, the different tools they use, and you start to look at Zapier and look at different API that exist to connect them to each other. So for example, the Pipedrive goes well with Asana, you have the Gmail, you have Google Drive, you have a couple of different tools. And depending on the workflows, you can advise the client to keep their tools or to do everything in Asana. So for example, if you have Pipedrive, but you do very simple stuff, maybe it makes sense to bring everything inside Asana and use Asana as a CRM. So it really depends. You need to, for each tool, you need to understand how they use the tool and either connect with Asana or just bring the entire tool inside Asana.
Okay. Wow. That's neat. Now, when you start to grow and you remove yourself from the day to day, let's talk about those assistants. How do you find and utilize a virtual assistant?
I think before finding one, you need to realize that you need one. And before realizing that, you need to realize that they do exist. I actually realized this when I read the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
And I was like, holy cow, you have people like this that you can actually hire for several hours and that you can delegate stuff to them. So it really made sense at the time. Yes. But I didn't have anything to delegate at the time. And then a couple of months or years went by and I've started to have those side projects around Asana while having a full-time job as a web developer. Mm-hmm. So I was doing more and more stuff with Asana while having less and less time to do them.
Okay.
And I just realized and at the same time, I'm not a English native speaker, so I needed someone to actually proofread what I've written. Okay. So I realized maybe I can have someone do that for me. So I looked out for people and I hired a couple of assistants. I trained them on using Asana. And then before you know it, I had like a team of 12 assistants that I was delegating stuff to them. And I was also putting them in touch with clients that needed assistance. And okay. I have assistants watching meeting videos and writing the meeting minutes.
Okay.
My own assistant actually creates content for social media. So for example, I give them the text for a quote and they use the Canva picture I've created and then just replace the text and create the image and put it back inside Asana. So it saves 5 minutes. Yes. But when you have one per day, it really adds up and saves a lot of hours at the end of the day. Yeah. Also for the books I've written about Asana, I've had assistants like proofread my text mm-hmm. and check for typos and everything. And I've saved hours and hours of work just by having assistant help me.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you just said, it may take 5 minutes, but in a lot of cases, at least in cases that I've seen for myself, a 5-minute task may take 2 hours because you're overthinking it, you're getting distracted, and next thing you know, that 5-minute task, it took you maybe 5 minutes to do it, 2 hours to talk about it or plan for it or get around to it. So that's
I actually have a great example of this. My last book is made of 30 chapters, and at first I wanted to have one picture per chapter, so 30 pictures. And I thought about it and I said, okay, to find the picture, find the right one, really decide on it, put it inside Asana, then put it inside Word and do the layout and maybe change them later because they don't make sense. Maybe I'm going to spend like 10 minutes per image, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you do the math, it's 10 minutes per 30 chapters. It's actually 5 hours of work. Wow. So by deciding to not do that or by delegating, you actually save 5 hours, which is huge. Mm-hmm. And depending on what's your time is worth compared to what an assistant can cost, you can really save a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah. That's something that I found too. Found out the hard way. I mean, a lot of times I'll do it myself, and then after spending the time and getting it done, then you're like, wow, now I got to get other things done that may have been more critical to do, but I've spent all this time doing these small tasks, or I burn myself out to where I don't feel like doing it. So I'm not putting my best energy toward the bigger task because I've been doing a lot of small stuff and had burned myself out doing a lot of busy work. So that's
Yeah,
something.
and yeah, at one point the question comes to how much are you willing to pay to get 1 hour to go play with your kids, for example?
Yeah.
Maybe it's $10, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30. I can guarantee you that you can find an assistant to do that, and you can save 1, 2, 3, 10 hours. And
Yes.
I think we can talk about the example of the podcast. What do you think?
We can definitely.
So the thing is, I recorded 2 podcasts in the past, and I thought it was a really great experience. I really had fun being a guest on podcast, and it really helped me have take a step back on the work I do by talking about it. And I thought maybe I should find some podcasts to be a guest on and talk about what I like. It would be nice. And I said, okay, but I don't really have time to do that. So I found an assistant, and I told her, you have 5 hours to find me podcast I could be a guest on. Those are the subject I can talk about, Asana, productivity, whatever. And I found someone to do that, and I expected her to find maybe 2 or 3 podcasts. I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
Actually found 15 podcasts
Oh, wow.
that were almost all of them were willing to have me on the podcast. So I'm discussing with most of them at the moment, and they almost all made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably saved more than 5 hours because she really did a good job, and she did stuff I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
So it was really, really worth it.
Wow. And it's interesting because I have an assistant that I told to find guests for my podcast. And so my assistant probably talked to your assistant and got you on the show. So that's
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Same thing. I mean, I was spending time going through finding guests and so forth myself, which was a fun task, fun project, but it does take time to do. And so I actually have an assistant that's her job is to go out and find guests that fit certain topics and coordinate the schedule, work to get them on the show, make sure that they attend and so forth. So that helps.
It is, it is very, very powerful. And for the people listening from the marketing background, having someone looking for pictures, proofreading, creating images, whatever, you can save a lot of time.
Yes, and a lot of focus, because now you can focus on what you do best versus on everything else.
Yeah.
So yes, a good book to read by Michael Gerber is The E-Myth Revisited. Great book, and he talks about how a lot of businesses take on the task and then they delegate and then they try to micromanage, and then they, and he talks about the progression of doing it yourself versus building a team to do it. And, the one quote that I remember, I don't remember who said it, so I'm not going to mess up. It wasn't my quote, but they said the difference between Oprah Winfrey and you, everyone says that everyone has 24 hours in a day. And that's not true, because if you leverage other people's time, then your time magnifies by, it multiplies by many folds. So some people do have more than 24 hours in a day. And that's because they use other people's time. So that's.
Yeah. And when you spend 8 hours a day doing what you love and what you're good at, you just become even better at what you do.
Yeah.
And when you spend 6 hours a day proofreading your own stuff and 2 hours actually working, I think you're just getting worse and worse.
Yes. You wake up motivated and go to bed frustrated because you've been doing the majority of the day doing things you don't enjoy doing. And so you go to bed and you're like, I didn't accomplish anything I wanted to do. Well, yes, because you were doing a lot of things you don't like doing. And I can say I do that often, and I'm working on fixing that. I'm building a team. I've got certain players right now that are really good at what they do. And like you said, they bring to the table things that you wouldn't even thought of, because that's not what you do. I mean, you don't think about certain things because it's not your space. So,
and yeah, just to give you an example, the assistant I hired actually contacted the podcast on Instagram. I would have never thought of that because I just don't use Instagram.
yeah.
It's working well. So I'm talking with some of them on Instagram, and it's blowing my mind because I wouldn't have thought of it if it wasn't for her.
Yes, and that's funny because that's what she did too. She's reaching out to people on Instagram, and I don't really get on Instagram too often myself. I've learned Twitter to be my tool of choice when it comes to reaching out to people. Email used to be, but email gets so saturated nowadays. But yeah, they find out different things, and so now I'm kind of, what I do is take a seat out on the in the sunshine, and I think about whatever the task is, and I'm saying, do I want to do this? Do I like to do this? Nah, I need to find somebody that does this. And so all I want to do is this, and this. And so I stay in my lane in a sense. So, that's something that's good advice. Very good advice is to look for your team, delegate your team, find somebody and spend time doing, like you said, things that you enjoy, like spending time with family and so forth.
It really takes time to be in that mindset to delegate and to know how to delegate properly for work. It's really a different mindset than most people have, because if you have a regular job, if I say, you will never think of delegating just 2 hours of something from your day to someone else.
Yes. So
except to colleagues within your work environment, obviously, but for a side project, it doesn't make sense and people don't think about it.
Yeah, and I know some people that do it very well. I mean, they delegate everything almost. I mean, literally dry cleaning, things you wouldn't, it's like, sometimes I feel they overdo it, but they're like, some people I've known to delegate lunch. They don't even get their own lunch. They have somebody that goes and brings
I've
them
seen
their
that.
lunch.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen that I was on a call with a client and their assistant. They were in different countries and the assistant was ordering lunch for the client. And she was saying, hey, your lunch has arrived. And the guy was at the door. So the client just went to the door.
Yes. I've had a client to do that. They don't even get their own lunch. It's efficient. I mean,
maybe they saved 15 or 20 minutes, just decide on what they wanted to eat. And they just trust their assistant to do that. 20 minutes. If you bill like $200 an hour, your clients, then it makes sense to delegate for 20 minutes.
It does. I mean, even before this show here, I went out and grabbed lunch, and I don't know, maybe it's because of all that's going on, but it took a lot longer than I planned. I left an hour and a half before our show, and I got back maybe 30 minutes. So it actually took me an hour to go get something that usually takes about 20, 25 minutes to get. But they were, I guess backlog, I don't know. It just took them a long time to get the food. So, think about how much your hour is worth. And if you were doing that, and let's say you charge $100 an hour, then that hour and a half cost you $150 that you could have been doing things that were productive. So,
or that you like better.
Yes, definitely. Because sitting in a line waiting on food is not something that I enjoy doing. And I don't think too many people do. So great. Well, Sebastian, you say that you asked Sebastian. I did it again. The bloopers are going. So, Bastien, you said that you actually help consult with companies. Let the listeners know, if they're having this challenge, how they can reach out and get help in this area of organization.
They can actually go to my website. It's called minimalist-work.com. It's a website I have that merges my two passions between minimalism and productivity. and they'll find everything I do around Asana, including books, articles, and the product I create around Asana,
Okay.
as well as my consulting page.
Okay. Great. Great. So it's all about being productive, y'all. It's all about being organized and getting things done. That's important versus just doing things. I think. A
Yeah,
lot,
yeah, I think it's a 21st century superpower to be productive and
yeah.
be able to do more than other people. And with the time saved, you can either have a hobby or spend time with your family, or maybe work even more if you want to, but then you'll be ahead of people that are not productive enough.
And that's a good point because I think in our generation, at least in my generation, you're probably younger than me, but we were taught hard work, and hard work meant how many hours you put in the day doing things and showing that you're doing things. Today's time is result oriented. It's not about how much time you put into it. It's about how much are you getting done. And I think especially for our older generation, making that switch in the mind of the minimalists. The millennials, they really get the minimalism. They get that. But ours is like, oh man, I put in a 12-hour day. I was working all day. And for that, we feel as if it's a badge of honor. We say, oh wow, you're a hard worker. But in the 12-hour day, how much did you get done? Versus with the minimalist attitude, look, I put in 2 hours, but I've got 4 things done in 2 hours that pushed the needle, made things happen, versus I put in 12 hours, but only got 1 thing done in a whole 12-hour day. So, which a
Yeah,
lot of
perfect.
times is just spinning your wheels, you know, looking at a computer. You're not really working, but you're putting time into it. So so that's important.
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much for all the insights that you've given, and it really helps when you know people that know things. And like I said, if you don't know, reach out to experts that do. I've worked with Asana for several years, and as you can see in this interview, I didn't even know they had rules. I was like,
So
really?
maybe I can sell you some consulting on Asana to
Yeah, I've
get you
worked.
started.
Yeah, I've worked with Asana for years, and I thought I was really a good pro at Asana. And I was like, man, I didn't know. I had to look at Asana again. So yeah, we may have to talk about that to become a lot more productive, because I have projects upon projects with tasks, you know, and all these red dates, bunch of red dates that I missed the deadlines on. So.
Oh, I'll be available if you need me. Don't
Sure,
hesitate.
sure. So, so great. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you again, Bastien, for presenting. And let's all go over, and look at how we can be more productive with our day, and get a lot more done. Because at the end of the day, your business isn't about how many hours you put in. It's about how much productivity you have to bring in revenue. And that's really the bottom line to it all. So. Thanks,
Amen.
everybody. And again, this is another marketing strategy session. Hopefully, you learned a lot. If you have any questions or any feedback, feel free to put it in the comments. We will be looking at it, and I'll get the answer for you that you need. So I look forward to seeing your comments and look forward to seeing your feedback.